you
Awesome.
need.
There we go. Well, I'm here with Allan Jackson. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
I'm I'm doing remarkably well. A wise person once said to me, "The universe loves me," and I can't get that out of my head.
Yeah, that's a great quote. I don't know whoever said that, but they sound like a very wise man
They
or
sound
person.
like an author, speaker, advocate. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to start by talking about how we met because I think the story is awesome.
Joe, I would literally put that in my 55 years on this planet, definitely top 10. I could argue top five. And
I
I'm talking like ever. I'm talking like kids being born and stuff like that. That was because the story is more than just a great story. To me, it was very symbolic of like making this monumental jump. And I guess maybe I don't know if you want me to tell the story or if you wanted to. You want me to tell the story? Do you want to tell the story or?
I think we should tell the story like we've talked about before from each of our perspectives, and I'd like to start with yours.
Yeah. So just really quick to all of your viewers, when I met Joe, I resided in Western Massachusetts, but I was in Fresno because months later I had met a young lady who I fell in love with, and I was traveling back and forth from Massachusetts to Fresno to be and spend time with her and realized that this was my person and this is who I wanted to live with for the rest of my life. So I was planning on moving to Fresno. So in doing so, we had to find a house. Our apartment was too small for us, so we wanted to get a larger house. Uh, we just was driving around on a Saturday morning, and we saw that there was an open house. So we figured we'd swing by. It was an open house to purchase. We were looking to rent, but we thought, let's just see what the market looks like and what something in our price range would look like. So when we pulled up there, I see this big sign and it says, Joe Haydock is the realtor, and got a big smile on his face. And then as I pull up, there are about four other cars pulling up simultaneously. Now, all the families that were getting out of this car that were just ahead of us were white. So imagine four, families, walking towards his home. And behind those families was me and my Mexican girlfriend. And there's Joe, and Joe's greeting everyone with, "Hey, I'm Joe. I'm Joe. Hey, I'm Joe." Big bright smile, and to all the other people looking at the house. And when Joe gets to me, he looks at me, and he gives me this very odd stare. And in my head, I'm going, "Oh, here we go." So, because here he goes greeting it with great joy and animation to all the other families, but when he gets to the black guy, I get the stare. And so I immediately defer to, my instincts of like, all right, here we go. We're going to have a really nice racial experience here. And I introduced, I said, "You must be Joe." And he goes, "You look familiar." And I say, "Well, that's not possible because I don't live in Fresno. I live in Western Massachusetts." And Joe says, "No, you look like a guy I follow on Instagram. He's an author, a children's book author." And I go, "Well, I am on Instagram. I am a children's book author." And he's like, "The guy's name is Ty." I'm like, "My name is Ty." I'm like, wait. What is happening here? And he goes, "Wait a minute. Are you Ty Allan Jackson?" I go, "What?" And my girlfriend and I head explodes because there's no rational reason why this realtor, who just by happenstance, we just walk into this house, should know my name, much less who I am, much less follow me on Instagram. And so immediately, like my head explodes that you even know who I am. My girlfriend and I look at each other with total bewilderment. And then you say,
Well, what did I say right then? All I can let me back up.
okay, back up.
So let me back up to the summer of 2020 and the fall of 2020 when my daughter, Kayla, starts a little initiative here in Fresno called Books for Understanding. because she knows, and the rest of our kids know, my wife and I know, that representation has been bad over the years. The first time I had an African-American teacher, I was in college at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. Sociology teacher. He was actually pretty great. And you know, when we were growing up, we just weren't exposed. It was like a whole race had been segregated and sort of marginalized and wiped out. And Kayla said, we've got to do something about that. So she started asking people for recommendations for books that she could get other people to buy and she could distribute to school children and libraries in the Fresno area. And my daughter-in-law, Amber, who's an educator, said, oh, I love this guy's books, Allan Jackson. So Kayla started getting these books, and we talked about it a lot. She and I talked a lot about stuff. And so I started following you on Instagram, and I thought, you know, this guy he's a lot of fun. He's intriguing. He's interesting. And so, you know, so when you were walking up, the look I gave you was because I was flabbergasted. I thought, he's got a doppelganger. I knew you lived on the other side of the United States. I didn't anticipate. So for me, it was a big moment because, of course, you had no idea who I was. You weren't following
No
me because you have a lot more followers. I mean, exponentially a lot more followers than I do. And so I just said, man, I know who you are. I've been following you. My daughter Kayla told me about you. In fact, we FaceTimed with Kayla. All over the house, people were aware that this sort of magical moment was happening. And you said, well, brother, I'm a hugger. You gave me a hug, which was perfect because I'm a hugger. And I said, I think the next thing I said was, do you have a realtor? And you said, I do now.
I do now.
And of course, you are renting at this time.
Yeah.
And that works out great, no problems. But we set up to have lunch a couple of days later.
Yeah.
And then you moved to town, and we've been in conversation
and friends.
And friends. And
Yeah.
I'm just thrilled to have a friend like you.
Well, I feel completely the same, but it is such a unique, powerful story. I literally, when we left the house, I called my mom. I'm like it was, and again, I repeat it was more than just this really uniquely, serendipitous story. It was symbolic. It was almost like Fresno welcoming me here, of allowing me to have a built-in friend, to have a friend who respects my work, which is a tremendous part of what it is that I do. It's almost more who I am as much as it is what I do, and to have just in this very serendipitous way, someone meet me under those circumstances made me feel like that this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your work.
Sure. Let's go.
You write children's books, among other things. You write children's books, and books like Danny Dollar Millionaire.
Yep.
The Lemonade Escapade. Is that how that? Yeah, that's
nice job. Very. That's impressive.
And Super Duper Kid.
Super Duper Kid, part 1 and 2.
Part 1 and 2. Great stories. A couple of children's books, picture books that I've got for my daughters. I've got a wonderful picture of my granddaughters in South Carolina. I've got a wonderful picture of my granddaughter Jade with your book, I Am Amazing, You Are Amazing, and a great big smile on her face because people who don't know, my youngest daughter Anna is, as well as my daughter Kayla, are adopted, and Anna is African American. And so her daughters are African American, and her daughter Jade is like, here's a kid in this book that looks like me, and it's a great book. She loved that book because mom could read half of it to her.
That's right.
She could read the other half. Anyway, great times. It's in the laundry. I would have worn my read or else shirt this morning.
I should have done the same.
So
Although
tell,
my attire might be a little appropriate as well, because I noticed that your previous interviewee also had on a turtleneck, and I didn't realize that until yeah. So this
talking
might have
about
to be called the
Darren.
turtleneck show. Like,
Yeah, I we should call it the turtleneck show. I'm gonna
yeah,
start
that's
with
not
the
a bad
turtlenecks
name.
too.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, Darren. So you came you and Nani came to a Fresno Pacific basketball game after
Yep,
dinner with my wife and I, and you met Darren, person who is also an author, and he's working on a children's book now. He
yep.
was so thrilled to meet you. He just he thinks the world of you, and I gathered you feel the same way about him. He's a great human.
Super bad.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
how did you become a children's book author?
Yeah, it's probably not your traditional way, if there is such a thing as a traditional way to become a children's book author. But it all happened about 15 years ago when my son was 8 years old. He asked if he could open up a lemonade stand. He made $50 in 3 hours selling lemonade. He said, "Dad, what am I going to do with this $50?" I said, "I have no idea." So I went to my local bookstore to try to find a book to teach my son about what to do with his $50, what to do with money, how does money work. And I noticed two things. I noticed one, there were so few books featuring young Black contemporary characters that looked like my son. And then I also noticed there was no books teaching kids about money. And like, so I just kind of put those two things together. The name Danny Dollar just popped into my head. I went home and started writing. It took me a year to write this manuscript titled Danny Dollar Millionaire Extraordinaire, The Lemonade Escapade. And then as my niece is blow drying her hair. I don't know if you can hear
I
that.
can't hear it. You're good.
Okay, good. All right. So we'll just pretend that I didn't even say that.
Wow,
And then yeah, it took me a year to write the story. And then I submitted it to 147 different agents. I was rejected 147 different times. And so I started my own self-publishing company so I could publish it myself. I titled that company Big Head Books. You can see why. And
mine would be
two
big
years,
nose books.
yeah, well, I'm staying away from that. But about 2.5 years after my son said, "Hey, Dad, can we open up a lemonade stand?" Book was born, and it was really one of the most powerful days of my life because it made me realize, if I put my heart and soul into it, even without any experience, I could do anything. Since then, I've sold about 150,000 copies of this book. It's become a serial story in 20 newspapers across the country. It's become a theatrical performance with over 40 performances of where I used to reside in Western Massachusetts. And it's currently the foundation of Danny Dollar Academy, which is a financial literacy program that's now being run by the Federal Reserve. And that all stems from a question from my son. And it really goes also to the power of children and how just as simple as a question can literally change the world. Because if my son doesn't say, "Hey, Dad, can we open up a lemonade stand?" None of this happens. So my son is very conscious of that, by the way, and initially said he wants 10% of everything I make, which makes me realize that he's taking that Danny Dollar concept to heart.
Yeah,
But
good.
but up to this point, I've sold almost 200,000 copies of all of my books, and now I tour the country talking to children about the power and the importance of reading.
It's awesome. It's incredible. And you've got another book involved with training children specifically about money. Tell me about
Yeah,
the book.
yeah. It's titled "Make Your Own Money." It's my most recent book. It And what's great about this book is that while it is a spinoff of my first book, Danny Dollar, it's actually my first published book. All my books have been self-published, but a pretty prestigious publishing company saw the success I was having, reached out to me and asked if I would write a second Danny Dollar book, which is somewhat ironic considering I reached out to so many
Yeah.
publishing companies and was rejected by them, which is also, an understanding that things may not always go your way initially, but if you work hard and stick with them, things can move much more astutely into your direction. But so Danny Dollar, Make Your Own Money: How to Earn It, Save It, Spend It, and Dream Big. is literally a manual that teaches kids step by step exactly how can you earn money. Once you earn it, how do you save it? Once you know how to save it, how do you spend it? And from investing to open up bank accounts and how a checkbook works. Like they're right here in this book, and it is also currently the foundation of the Danny Dollar Entrepreneur Fair, which I just launched last year in Western Massachusetts. Think science fair, except instead of kids demonstrating on how a light bulb works or how a volcano erupts, they're demonstrating their ideas that they would currently have for a business. And some of these kids have actual businesses. And so, they have their trifolds with explaining what their business is, how they make money, how they market, how they invest it. And we launched it last year with over 300 students in Western Massachusetts. It went so well that they're expanding it to over 500 students this year. And I'm also looking to expand it here in the Fresno area. So
awesome.
Pretty awesome.
That's really great stuff, Ty. Now tell me about this museum thing.
Oh, yeah. So
this museum thing. I'm seeing talk about a Ty Allan Jackson exhibit at a museum.
It's a little so I have to, if to tell that story, I lived in the city of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is in Western Massachusetts, for about 19 years. For 10 of those years, I was an author and was really relevant in my community, from joining board of directors to coaching Little League to being on school committees and things like that. And so I had a tremendous connection and bond with the city of Pittsfield, as it did to me. And many of the things that this city has shown that it appreciates my work is, one, I have a mural in the children's library of my books, a full size mural on the side of the wall in the children's book section. My book, again, was turned into a play. I received an honorary doctorate from the local college out there. And the museum, the Berkshire Museum, located in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, is doing a large exhibit of children's books and children's authors and storytelling. But to get into that large exhibit, you have to walk through the Ty Allan Jackson exhibit, which demonstrates my work, my path into authorship, my advocacy for promoting literacy, from TED Talks to establishing programs like I've already talked about. And I could not be more honored that my previous home reveres my work so much that they would honor me in such a way.
It is a great honor. Back to the financial literacy. What's interesting is, how many times do you see on social media or in other contexts people say, "Hey, in school they taught us about this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
But why is nobody teaching us about this?"
Yeah.
Which is financial literacy. I'm a realtor, so obviously I have a vested interest in people being financially in good shape, because
yes,
I think
agreed.
homeownership is a great idea, and not just a great idea, but a great reality that does build wealth in families. And so I want to see families able to buy homes. And one of the things that causes people to stumble on that path is either they haven't been able to save for a down payment, or their credit is just shot. And why is that? Is it because they're bad people? No. Is it because they're not smart? No. Is it because they're lazy? Absolutely not. Some of the hardest working people I know have trouble getting the money set aside. So what is it? It's because they just don't have the tools. They don't have the financial literacy. And if we catch children with that message and that power, I mean, you're empowering people, brother.
Well, while I am grateful for that statement, it's sad that I have to. It's sad that someone has to take the baton of empowering our children about financial literacy. I've always said, our school systems, which, by the way, I have the utmost respect for educators in this country.
Sure.
But I mean, ultimately, our goals as educators, as parents, as guardians, is to raise thought-provoking, intellectual, self-sustaining, and independent children that will go out into society and contribute and make the world a better place. And being financially savvy is a tremendously huge part of that. And the fact that financial literacy, for the most part, is not taught in schools, where that is relatively end game. Like end game is once you get out, is how are you going to sustain a lifestyle that allows you to raise a family, uplift the community, and make our country better and stronger. And so for the public school systems not to integrate financial literacy in their systems says either one of two things. One, they're really inept and can't figure out that like this needs to be an integral part of how we educate our children. Or two, it's intentional not to teach them because it's easier for systems to exploit people who are ignorant in ways of finances than it is to empower children and help them, become thriving members of community. And I know it's very conspiracy theory like, but I don't think that I don't think this is a stretch to think that to integrate financial literacy in all of our public school systems is the ultimate no brainer, and the fact that we don't do it is at least concerning, and at most terrifying. And so I'm glad that I've created these books that educate and empower our young people, not just about finance and entrepreneurship, but just about vision. Just knowing that eventually they're going to be in a space where they're going to need to know much more about money. And the more that they're aware of it, they don't all have to become entrepreneurs at 8 years old. But if they understand what interest is, what debt is, if they understand that, so when they're introduced to those things later on in life, they're like, oh yeah, I read that, Danny Dollar. That's not good. Or there is good debt, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to create these vessels for children to learn about finance, but I'm also sad that we're also in a system that fails to do the same.
Yeah. Well, well, your efforts are a part of that process of rectifying that. And on debt, yeah, there's the good debt. I think it's the debt that works for you, and bad debt's the debt that works against you, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And
Yeah,
it's the
good way to
difference
put it.
between an expense and an investment. And so I love, love, love that you're doing that, Ty. And you're getting integrated into the Fresno community, which is fun. And in fact, you're about to speak at an event at the zoo.
Yeah. So next week, next Thursday, there's a Black History event at the zoo where in the morning time they're going to have kids and families show up to the zoo, in which I will be reading from one of my picture books, When I Close My Eyes, which features animals within the story. So it's very aligned with the values of the zoo. But during the evening time, I'm very fortunate to be on a panel of 3 or 4 to discuss the relevance of Black history in our culture and in our society, which I have no problem saying to you, to be perfectly honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Black History Month, more specifically in the vacuum that we showcase it in. I think, and not that you asked, but I'm going to put it out there anyway, is that, when we do think of Black History Month, we're always looking backwards. And within Black history, it's always that of suppression. It's always that of degradation. It's always that of, of slavery and having to overcome obstacles. And when a society constantly views a certain demographic in that constant space, I think it's very difficult for people, anyone, whether you're Black, white, it doesn't matter, to see themselves in a much more progressive space. So, what I would love to see Black history be married with a sort of progressive look into the future of not just of what Black people had to overcome to be where they are, but also the work that we're currently doing to see where we're going. And one of the analogies I use right now is that like that the number one ballerina in the world is a Black woman,
Yeah.
Misty Copeland.
Yeah.
The
She's amazing.
is the number one ballerina in the world.
Yeah.
The arguably the two most important race car drivers, whether we're talking Bubba Wallace or Lewis Hamilton, are Black. The poet laureate of our country is a Black woman. Arguably the smartest man on the planet, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, is Black. And so, like, we have more than enough of people who are out there doing this tremendous work right now to push the narrative forward and break these barriers. And we need to marry those two. It can't solely be Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. It also needs to be, our leaders and change makers today.
Oh, that's well said. And I agree. And recognizing that not only have Black Americans had to overcome that oppression, but along the way, even leading up to today, I mean, you could, in a sense, maybe Amanda Gorman is standing on the shoulders of Phyllis Wheatley, who was an enslaved
100%.
woman, right? Who was the first published enslaved person in America, and maybe the first woman published poet in America. And so I think, and there's just been that long history, and it's vibrant. And I guess my concern about Black History Month is that we need to not relegate Black history to February.
Agreed.
Right, American
Agreed.
history is Black history. As my son's team had warm-up shirts made that they wore. Fresno history is Black history, and I love that. And
absolutely,
in a society in which sometimes there are folks that want to, for whatever their reasons are, to forget about that reality.
Yeah.
Or erase that reality. I want to celebrate that reality, because we're all made richer, stronger, better, wiser because of people like you. Oh man, I'm a huge Neil deGrasse Tyson fan. I love that guy, and he's not only smart; he's incredibly funny.
Yes, incredibly funny.
He is a witty human. So
yeah, agreed.
All right, my friend. Well, Ty, I'm just thrilled to spend a few minutes with you. I hope you have a marvelous day. I look forward to the next time I see you. Planning to be there at the zoo. And so if I don't see you before then, we'll see you then. I'll be the guy, cheering real big. And
just don't throw any tomatoes.
That's my buddy Ty. No tomatoes. No tomatoes.
No tomatoes.
Well, I eat tomatoes. I don't throw tomatoes.
That's good. I love tomatoes too.
Yeah, tomatoes are. Yes. And you're in California now, so you get them fresh off the vine, and they don't.
Love it.
No comparison with those store-bought ones.
Yeah, that's right. Agreed. Well, I appreciate you, brother. You're a good man and a good friend, and I'm glad we have this bond and connection.
I do as well. Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful day. Okay.
You do the same. Be well.
Okay. Bye-bye.